Iowa football's 2022 schedule gets a rebuild. More on that in a moment. Before we get to our video for today, a reminder, if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button below this video to subscribe to our channel. More great content on the way, and it's all free. And of course, be sure to like the video as well. That always helps. So, the Big Ten Conference came out with some revisions to the 2022 football schedule today, and the explanation was made that it was in response to some of the changes that had been made in 2020. Of course, as we know as Iowa fans, the non-conference schedule was eliminated in 2020. These changes today had nothing to do with those changes from 2020, but there were some schools that had significant alterations made to their 2020 schedules to, again, fit in with the climate that we were dealing with in the 2020 schedule, of course, during the pandemic, the early stages of COVID. So, the schedule changes that were made today did not affect Iowa from a standpoint of opponent or location. Now, there were some Big Ten games that were altered as far as opponent is concerned. Illinois, Indiana, for instance, is an added game. Northwestern, Penn State is an added game. However, Iowa does not have an added game. Okay, so all of Iowa's opponents are all the same. Now, some games that were changed as far as location is concerned. Michigan is now going to Indiana. Nebraska is going to Purdue. Purdue is going to Wisconsin. Michigan State going to Michigan. Wisconsin going to Nebraska. And Indiana going to Michigan State. So those are some examples of the changes in location from the adjustments from today. But again, none of those games involved Iowa. So what happened with Iowa's schedule? Well, as you may or may not remember, and I've talked with Mark Rogers over at the Iowa, the Voice of College Football channel, about this very subject in recent weeks, Iowa's schedule in 2022 is a gauntlet, and it's not going to end up like Iowa's 21 schedule did. Remember, there was hype around Iowa's 21 schedule because Indiana had a really good year during 2020. We expected Penn State to be pretty darn good and bounce back from a tough 2020 campaign. And Indiana was terrible, 2-10. Of course, Penn State, that was a good win at home for Iowa, but a 7-5 Nittany Lions team ended up being 7-6 after a bowl loss. So the schedule did not hold true, and so that makes one wonder, could this schedule end up being a lot easier? And I'm talking about 2022. Could it be a lot easier than maybe it looks on paper now? I don't think that's the case, and here's why. Let's take a look at these schedules, and I've got these side by side, so the before and after schedule. So the before schedule was what we originally had planned, right? The original schedule that had been released, and then of course you see there the after at the right. That is the new revised schedule that was released today. So South Dakota State, Iowa State, Nevada. Again, those non-conference matchups do not change. Those are still going to be on September 3rd, 10th, and 17th. They're all home games, which means Iowa, this is the year, every other year they do this, Iowa will play five road games in the Big Ten since they get all three non-conference games at home. Okay, so 9/24, September 24th, originally was supposed to be an opener at Minnesota, which is quite a way to start the Big Ten action. Of course, Minnesota will be returning a lot. Mo Ibrahim being a perfect example of that at running back. Minnesota now will be moved to November 19th. You see there on the right. So who's the replacement? Well, it's the game at Rutgers, which is a built-in game Iowa has for a while here. Which is probably, if you're going to pick any East opponent to have built into your schedule for a period of time, it's probably Rutgers. So they get Rutgers on the 24th as the home opener, the road opener in the Big Ten. And then, of course, on October 1st, that game against Michigan, that did not change. You're still going to get Michigan inside Kinnick on the 1st. October 8th, originally they were going to get at Purdue. Now they'll get at Illinois. So Illinois originally was supposed to be scheduled on November 12th. Again, that's now on October 8th. Purdue will now slide down to November 5th. And, of course, that game's still on the road. They will get Ohio State after that, but this is a slight alteration as well. You see Ohio State scheduled for the 15th before the alteration, before the schedule change. Now they will come on the 22nd. Why is that significant? Well, Ohio State gets a bye week before Iowa's game, and Iowa will get a bye week before that Ohio State game as well. So that's interesting. Iowa will get an extra week of prep. We know that hasn't always helped Iowa. They got a bye week this year before the Wisconsin game, and we all know how that turned out. October 29th, that has not changed. They'll get Northwestern in Kinnick. We mentioned the change. Rutgers on the, November 5th has now moved up in the schedule, and so Iowa gets Purdue on November 5th. Wisconsin now on the 12th. They were originally scheduled to play Wisconsin on November 19th. They'll get them now on November 12th. At Minnesota is the second to last game. Again, that was supposed to be the road opener, the Big Ten opener for Iowa. That is now the second to last game of the season. And then, of course, the Black Friday Classic game, I guess we can call it now, Iowa taking on Nebraska. That game will be inside Kinnick Stadium this year on Black Friday. So a couple takeaways from this, folks. A, no other Friday games, at least as of right now. Now, we'll see. We know that the Big Ten Conference very well could make adjustments and move a game. For instance, the Purdue game on the 8th, they could move that to the 7th and make that a Friday game. I don't know if they'll do that, but that's possible. Overall reactions, though, looking back at our schedule again here, that gauntlet at the beginning of the Big Ten season that we expected at Minnesota versus Michigan, at Purdue, at Ohio State. I'm not saying it would have been this, but I could have easily seen Iowa gone 0-4 during that stretch. Now, maybe that's being unfair, but again, at Minnesota, home against Michigan, at Purdue, at Ohio State, those are all going to be tough, 3 of 4 on the road. So the fact that the schedule has been altered and now Iowa starts off, instead of those 4, they get at Rutgers, home Michigan, at Illinois, bye week at Ohio State. That's a much more manageable start to the season. So instead, the gauntlet sort of moves towards the end of the schedule with at Purdue, home Wisconsin, at Minnesota, home Nebraska, but it's not nearly as front-loaded as the schedule that we originally expected to play was. So I think that's got to be an advantage. It's a more balanced schedule, and again, they get a bye week before they play Ohio State. But regardless, the schedule does not decrease in strength of schedule or level of difficulty. You still get your big boys in Michigan and Ohio State, and of course, as you do every year, Minnesota, Purdue, and Wisconsin. So overall, it's a more balanced schedule as far as timing is concerned. But it's a perfect example of a time where Iowa needs to take advantage of that bye week going into the Ohio State game and be able to use it to Iowa's advantage. Appreciate you listening this afternoon. We'll be back later on this week. We'll actually be with you tomorrow, Thursday night, for Iowa postgame. After the Iowa and Indiana men's basketball game, we'll be here with Coach Gary Close. And, of course, we'll cut in periodically whenever breaking news happens here in Hawkeye Nation. Appreciate you listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.